In the crisp autumn of 1907, the mountain town of Black Hollow, Kentucky, carried a silence heavier than fog. It wasn't the kind of silence that comforted. It was the kind that pressed against your ribs, that made children cling to their mothers' skirts and men keep their rifles close by the hearth. Hunters, good men, seasoned woodsmen, had begun to vanish. Their tracks would lead into Pine Ridge Forest, but never out. Sometimes their rifles were discovered resting neatly against tree trunks, as though abandoned mid-step. Campfires burned out with meals uneaten. A single boot might be found stuck in the mud. But of the men themselves, nothing. Rumors spread in whispers. The woods were cursed. Some swore they had heard screams carried on the night wind. Others said the trees themselves were hungry. Fear grew so strong that families barred their doors before sundown, and fathers warned sons not to venture too far. Beneath all the talk, one name rose again and again: the Hargrove brothers. Thomas and Samuel Hargrove had once been the pride of Black Hollow. Sons of a coal miner who had died too young, they grew up trapping rabbits, hunting deer, and supplying neighbors with meat when winters turned cruel. People admired them. Thomas for his strength and unshakable confidence, Samuel for his patience and keen aim. But as the years passed, admiration turned into gossip. Thomas craved recognition, loudly proclaiming he was the best hunter in Kentucky. Samuel, the quieter one, lived in his brother's shadow. He longed not for glory, but for respect, for someone to see him as more than Thomas's little brother. Their feud played out in public. At the tavern, Thomas would slap Samuel on the back and jeer, "Tell him, Sam, how you missed that buck while I brought down two." Samuel's fists would tighten, his jaw clench, but he'd swallow his anger. Their rivalry became so fierce that even children whispered about it while skipping stones at the creek. By 1907, folks in Black Hollow no longer saw the Hargroves as heroes. They were rivals circling each other, bound by blood, but poisoned by pride. One stormy night, lightning slashed across the ridge, and Samuel found himself at the tavern with Thomas. The ale loosened Thomas's tongue. "You'd be nothing without me, Samuel," he boasted, slamming his mug on the table. "The town knows it. Mama knew it. You're weak, always trailing behind." Samuel's hand trembled around his mug. For a moment he imagined standing, striking his brother across the face, shouting back. Instead, he muttered through clenched teeth, "One day, you'll regret those words." That night, Samuel did not go home. He wandered deep into Pine Ridge, guided by bitterness more than courage. The townsfolk often spoke of a hermit woman in the forest, half healer, half witch, who could grant favors at a terrible cost. Her shack appeared like a ghost between the trees, its single lantern flickering. Samuel stepped inside, rain dripping from his coat. The woman's eyes were sharp as needles. "You've come with hunger," she said before he spoke. "Not hunger of the belly, but of the heart." And Samuel, desperate, replied, "I want strength. I want to surpass my brother, whatever it takes." The hermit woman studied him with a cruel little smile. She ground herbs, bone dust, and ash together in a bowl, humming as the storm howled outside. "Strength is easy to give," she said, "but everything has a price. Do you accept it?" Samuel's pride drowned out his fear. "I'll pay whatever is required." She handed him a draught so dark it swallowed the lantern light. "Drink it at moonrise. You'll never hunger as men do, but mark me well, your cravings will be different." That night, Samuel stood alone beneath the swollen moon, the wind tearing at his coat. He drank. The pain was indescribable. His bones bent like green wood. His veins burned as though fire coursed through them. He fell to the ground, clawing the dirt, biting back screams until his throat bled. When dawn finally broke, he rose shakily, gasping, and felt stronger than ever before. His sight was sharper, his muscles alive with fire. But when he roasted a rabbit, the meat turned to ash in his mouth. His stomach heaved in revolt. The only scent that stirred his hunger now was not of animals, but of people. At first, Samuel resisted. He hunted as before, forcing himself to chew venison, squirrel, even roots, but every bite turned sour. He grew gaunt, his eyes sunken, his body trembling with starvation. Then came Clayton McBride, a young hunter from town, cheerful and trusting. Clayton crossed Samuel's path one foggy evening. "Sam, you're pale as a ghost," he said kindly. "Come share my fire. I've got stew enough for two." The smell of Clayton's stew sickened Samuel, but the boy's pulse, strong, steady, drove him mad. The hunger screamed inside him until it drowned every thought. By the time the moon rose, Clayton was gone. Only Samuel remained, shaking, weeping, yet filled with a dreadful relief. His hunger had been satisfied, for now. The next morning, when the town discovered Clayton's abandoned camp, suspicion stirred like restless crows. Samuel stood among the searchers, silent, the weight of his terrible secret pressing down harder than any gaze. Days later, unable to bear it, Samuel turned to his brother. The fire in the Hargrove cabin crackled between them as he whispered, "Thomas, I've done something unforgivable." Thomas laughed, thinking it was about gambling debts or petty theft. But when Samuel's hollow eyes met his, the laughter died. "It was me," Samuel choked. "Clayton, the hunger, I can't stop it. I went to the hermit, and she cursed me." Thomas pushed back from the table, face pale. "You're a monster." "I know," Samuel whispered. "If you want me dead, take your rifle. I won't fight you." But Thomas did not reach for his gun. Instead, a strange glint flickered in his eyes. Not horror, but something else. Something dangerously close to envy. That night, while Samuel begged for forgiveness, Thomas slipped away into the woods. He found the hermit's shack and demanded the same power. The woman shook her head. "One curse is a burden. Two will be a plague." Thomas slammed his fist on her table. "I won't live in my brother's shadow. Give me what you gave him." By dawn, Thomas too bore the curse. He returned to the cabin wild-eyed, laughing as he tore through venison that sickened him. "Now we are equals, brother," he said. From that day on, the Hargrove brothers were no longer rivals. They were partners in darkness, hunting not deer or bear, but men. Hunters entered Pine Ridge and never returned. Their rifles were found leaning neatly against trees, their voices lost forever in the shadows. The curse bound the brothers together, but in different ways. Thomas embraced it with glee, reveling in his newfound strength, taunting the town with fresh horrors. He left bloodied clothing where children might stumble upon it, his laughter echoing through the trees at night. Samuel, on the other hand, grew quieter, heavier with guilt. He remembered their mother's words before her passing. "Pride is a fire, Samuel. Feed it, and it will consume all you love." But the hunger gnawed at him, relentless. Sometimes when Thomas dragged a victim into the cabin, Samuel turned away, hands pressed to his ears, praying for mercy he knew would not come. The brothers had once quarreled out of pride. Now they quarreled out of morality itself. Thomas intoxicated by their curse, Samuel haunted by it. One bitter winter evening, a knock rattled their cabin door. Samuel opened it to find Mary Calloway, a young widow with eyes red from weeping. "My husband's missing," she said, her voice trembling. "He went to hunt 3 days ago. Please, help me find him." Samuel's stomach turned violently. He knew exactly where her husband lay, deep beneath the roots of an oak, claimed by their hunger. Before he could speak, Thomas stepped forward, smiling too warmly. "Of course, Mary. We'll search at first light." When she left, Thomas chuckled darkly. "Poor woman. She's alone now. Easy prey." Samuel felt something crack inside him. He could not bring back her husband, but perhaps he could protect her from Thomas. Quietly, He began leaving small parcels of food on her porch, bread, venison, apples from the orchard. She never saw who left them, only whispered prayers of thanks into the night. As the weeks passed, Samuel's conflict deepened. Each time he left food for Mary, he felt a flicker of humanity. Watching her light a candle in her window, whispering prayers, made him wonder if redemption was possible. But each time Thomas dragged home another victim, laughing and boasting, Samuel's guilt grew heavier. "We're not men anymore," he told his brother one night, voice breaking. "We're worse than beasts." Thomas sneered. "Beasts survive. That's all that matters. Stop clinging to weakness." Samuel turned away, gripping the knife at his belt. For the first time, he wondered, not whether he could stop Thomas, but whether he must. And in that moment, Samuel Hargrove, the cursed brother, began to question which was worse, the hunger inside him or the monster his brother had chosen to become. By late winter, the missing hunters numbered too many to ignore. Black Hollow gathered at the church, every bench filled, lanterns flickering against fearful faces. Mothers wept softly. Fathers clenched their fists. Pastor Whitmore stood at the pulpit, his voice grim. "This is no bear, no wolf. This is evil walking on two legs. Something in Pine Ridge has turned against God." The townsfolk murmured. Some whispered of witches, others of demons. Finally, men rose with rifles in hand. "We'll hunt what's hunting us," declared old Jacob Morris, his face set like stone. Possess were formed. Lanterns and torches blazed as men swore to march into the forest. Yet, from the shadows outside the church, two figures watched. Thomas grinned, whispering to Samuel, "Let them come. The hunters will be hunted." Samuel's heart pounded. For the first time, he saw the townsfolk not as prey, but as neighbors, fathers and sons, and he knew blood would flow if Thomas had his way. As the brothers trudged back to their cabin, Samuel spoke sharply. "We can't keep doing this." "Every family in town is grieving. You've gone too far, Thomas." Thomas spun on him, eyes blazing. "Too far? We are gods now, Samuel. They're cattle, and we're wolves. This is our world." Samuel shook his head. "No, we're cursed. And you're the worst part of it." For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the howl of a distant wolf. Then Thomas snarled, "Careful, brother. If you stand against me, you'll share their fate." Samuel met his gaze, fear twisting in his gut. The bond of blood between them had frayed to a single fragile thread, and he knew Thomas would not hesitate to cut it. Days later, Samuel trailed Thomas through the woods, unease gnawing at him. Snow crunched underfoot as Thomas stalked a new victim, a boy, barely 16, setting traps near the creek. Thomas lunged from the shadows, pinning the boy to the ground. The boy's terrified cry tore through the trees. "Please!" Something inside Samuel snapped. He charged, slamming into his brother, dragging him away. The boy scrambled up and fled, his boots leaving wild tracks in the snow. Thomas roared with fury, his eyes burning. "You dare defy me? For a child?" Samuel's chest heaved. "He's innocent. You'll damn us both if this continues." For the first time, Thomas looked at his brother not as kin, but as an enemy. That night, Samuel slipped into town, hood pulled low. He knocked at Pastor Whitmore's door. The pastor opened it, candle trembling in his hand. Samuel fell to his knees. "It's us. Me and Thomas. We're the ones. The curse is real. If I cannot stop him, you must." Pastor Whitmore stared, his face pale. "Why tell me this?" "Because," Samuel whispered, "I don't want to be saved. But I want the town spared. Promise me, if I fail, you'll end him." The pastor laid a hand on Samuel's shoulder. "Even the darkest soul can seek light. But if your brother cannot be stopped, I will keep my promise." As Samuel left, a strange peace settled in his chest. For the first time, he had chosen something beyond hunger. He had chosen to protect. The blood moon rose red and swollen, casting an eerie glow over Pine Ridge. Thomas stood on the ridge, arms spread, eyes feverish. "Tonight, the town will feast me," he bellowed. "I'll tear through their church, their homes, their faith. They will kneel to us." Samuel stepped from the shadows. "No, Thomas. It ends here." The brothers clashed with a force that shook the forest. Claws met claws, teeth met steel. Trees splintered as they tore through brush and snow, their roars echoing across the valley. Villagers lit torches below, drawn by the terrible sounds. From afar, they saw two monstrous figures locked in battle beneath the crimson moon. The fight raged until both were bloodied, gasping. At last, Samuel pinned Thomas against the frozen ground. His knife trembled in his hand. Thomas's voice broke into rage and pleading. "Brother, don't! We are all we have." Tears streamed down Samuel's face. "We had each other once, but pride devoured you, and now I must end you." With a final cry, Samuel drove the hunter's knife through Thomas's chest. His brother's eyes widened in disbelief, then dulled with sorrow, and finally, silence. The forest grew still. Samuel fell to his knees beside the body, sobbing. He had killed his own blood to save strangers, but the hunger inside him was far from finished. As Thomas's blood seeped into the snow, Samuel felt the curse surge. The hunger clawed at him, stronger than ever, threatening to consume everything. He doubled over, screaming, his body racked with fire. Visions tore through his mind. Mary Calloway lighting a candle, children laughing in the schoolyard, his mother's voice whispering, "Love is stronger than pride." Samuel realized then, the curse fed on selfishness, on greed, on pride. If he surrendered to love instead, perhaps he could starve it. With shaking hands, he pressed the hunger inward, turning it against himself. His body convulsed, every nerve burning until the fire consumed him whole. And then, silence. At dawn, the villagers climbed the ridge, rifles ready. They found Thomas's body sprawled in the snow, lifeless. Of Samuel there was no trace, only his knife, driven deep into the earth beside a carving scratched into the bark of a tree. Pride devours, love redeems. The villagers buried Thomas on the edge of Pine Ridge. They never spoke of the Hargrove name again, except in whispers. And as for Samuel, some said he perished with the curse. Others swore his spirit lingered, watching over the woods to ensure no evil rose again. Years later, Mary Calloway told her children stories by the fire. She never revealed the truth she suspected, that Samuel had been the one leaving food on her porch during her darkest winter. Instead, she said, long ago there were two brothers. One chose pride, and it destroyed him. The other chose love, and it saved us all. Every winter, she lit a candle in her window, whispering a quiet prayer of thanks for the unseen hand that had fed her when she was alone. And though she never saw Samuel again, she believed he was out there, watching. By 1915, the tale of the Hargrove brothers had become legend. Travelers spoke of haunted forests in Kentucky, where hunters vanished, where torches flickered without wind. To some, it was just a ghost story to frighten children. But those who listened carefully understood the lesson. Pride, unchecked, can devour families. Love, though fragile, has the power to break even the darkest curse. And so in Black Hollow, when hunters enter the woods, townsfolk still whisper, "The brothers are watching." But instead of fear, some smile faintly, believing that somewhere in the shadows, Samuel Hargrove still walks, not as a monster, but as a guardian who chose redemption at the edge of despair.